Applause to this guy. He found out how to pronounce my second name, and that rarely happens. That's a big challenge, so applause, please. A second today. That's for you. Yeah, I'm whiskey lover, but I didn't drink yet today. I left it for the evening, so just to let you know that I'm here like fully to bring you knowledge and some expertise. And yeah, let's go with the journey that I've invited you to. Now, what you probably know, yeah, we have only 25 minutes, unfortunately, and I love to talk, so we need to be quick. Now, this is, and this is for me important, it's architectural styles. I called it protocols, but that's not entirely true. Not all of them are protocols. Architectural styles is much better name, but it's called here, yeah? Like, that's a little bit freezing. They didn't tell me to bring jackets and gloves and some other stuff, but to warm you up, just stand. Up. Okay, guys. Now, the first question, you see those protocols. If you worked with at least one of them, please stand. Otherwise, you sit down. We can talk about it during whiskey time. If you work with at least one, with at least two, please stay. Otherwise, just sit down. And that's actually more or less how the statistics looks like. If you work with three of them or more, please stay. Otherwise, sit down. Okay, that's already impressive. And if you work with four of them or more, please stay, otherwise sit down. Okay, I hope we won't continue this until 100, so please sit down. Okay, but we're gonna talk about 5 of them today. Actually, 4 of them plus 1, which is actually 5. So you see, I'm good at math. 4 plus 1 is actually 5. Now, this is according to Postman research from last year. And the important thing is you see at least 5 of them are about 25 or more %, which indicates you have 1/4 of a chance that joining a company, you will have at least one of those. And that's why it's important to know what's around, like that REST is not the only protocol you should be aware of. And I'm almost sure that you know REST, but we need to start with something. Now, other than that, other than protocols, there are API specifications popularity. And you can easily identify, like JSON schema, Swagger, Open API. That's mostly for REST. Then we have GraphQL, which is, surprise, for GraphQL. Then you have WSDL, this is for SOAP, and so on. The thing I like on this chart is the balance of SOAP. Where is SOAP? WSDL. How many people use it versus how many people use it and love it. That's not accident. So actually, who worked with SOAP? Yeah, from you. Who worked with SOAP in the past? SOAP protocol. Okay, guys, I'm sorry for you, and I'm gonna talk about it anyway. Now, some obvious things. The first one, we know what our methods designed for. We know what methods do. Then we have endpoints for getting resources. So we put an endpoint and we want to get some resource or create some resource or do something with the specific resources. Then we have status codes that should tell us something. For 100, actually, it usually doesn't matter. If you have seen 100 at least once in your life, in a real life, like in Dev console, you are a very lucky one. Because people usually don't see it. They know it exists, but we know a lot of things exist, and we have never seen them. And the fourth thing, REST API is well-known, standard. Those are obvious things. The only problem with this, none of them are true, or not entirely true, if we talk about protocols. They might be correct for REST API, but they are not correct for all others. And even for REST API, they are not always true, especially when we talk about REST being protocol. Now, let's start with REST. This is well known. This is what you probably have seen a lot of times, and maybe even now you are doing it on a daily basis. You might struggle with seeing it, so actually that's not that big problem because I'm not describing it anyway. And we're gonna talk about it in 3 dimensions, talking about 3 attributes. The first one, how it's communicating. And the rest obviously is bidirectional and is request response. We send, we receive. We send, we receive. Pretty clear. The second one, we have methods that somehow defines the behavior, and let's stay with this for a second. We assume it defines the behavior. And then we have format. Modern one is usually JSON. This is readable, this is easy to use, but we can actually use anything. XML, HTML, any other source of file is also fine. And the important thing for REST, and that might look obvious also, is how we decode URL. But why we talk about it is because URL is very specific for APIs. It's specific because it exists almost only in REST. So we define with endpoints, with resources, with parameters, and some other stuff, which are very, very specific for REST. And then we have methods. And guys, question to you actually. Put. What is put doing? Yes, but not actually fully right. The answer is put is doing exactly what the developer implements. And why I told you it's not a protocol, there are many reasons, but also REST is not fully defined. REST has no documentation that is formalized. It's more like good practices, some suggestions what it should do. So if you get a question during the interview, what is put doing or post doing, the only correct answer is whatever developer implements. And I saw products implemented with post methods only, and it works, and it was successful. I'm not telling you it was good from architectural perspective. I'm just telling it brings money, which also, which is much more important than good architecture. Sorry for saying that, even if you are at quality conference, but bringing money is the key point. And when we talk about it, this is much better to tell you how we can describe methods. And because, yeah, there are colors, and the one thing I just realized, I didn't explain what those color means. You can probably guess, but for green and red one, it's obvious. For white one, I mean, it's possible, but rarely used. People rarely do it. So yeah, you can assign request body to delete and to get, but it's very rarely used. So just to let you know. And if you are interested in what's idempotent, there is ChatGPT to ask. One important thing, for a few months at the very beginning of my adventure, I somehow thought it's impotent, and it was not true. It's idempotent. We have status code, which are also important for REST. Again, for other protocols, it might be troublesome, especially if you switch from REST to other protocols. It's very tricky, and we will talk about it a little bit later. The one thing, we have 2 items, always status code and message. Those messages might be misleading, and 204 is my favorite one because it tells you no content after delete method. What does it mean? Well, actually it's success because there is no more content because you just deleted it. It doesn't mean there was no content. It means there is already no content. So it's important to follow this. Now, I don't have any suggestion for REST testing because you know it much better, probably, than other protocols, and REST is our reference. So let's go to SOAP. Now, SOAP is much trickier, and for me, this research is pretty surprising because talking about API 10 years ago, I was repeating, you know, guys, SOAP is dying, so I'm not gonna talk about it much. And 10 years later, it has still 25% share on the market. So I stopped telling you SOAP is dying. I can just start saying, I hope SOAP will die. but that's a very different message. So I need to talk about it anyway. The major difference is, actually it's not a difference. Let's go step by step. It's bidirectional. We send, we receive. Exactly the same, but there are no methods. Actually, underneath, we have HTTP, HTTPS, or whatever there is, but we must send it somehow. And on this layer of network, we use post method and send it with the body attached. It's always post, and it's always one URL. There is a single endpoint. We do not use slashes with resources like in REST. And that's very, very different. And the third one, it uses XML, not JSON like before, but XML. And luckily, SOAP, we can call a protocol. It's well-defined and is very, very strict when it comes to validation. Now, what are pros and cons of testing? Well, it's super easy to find cons, and you probably noticed that there are many cons. It's quite complicated according to modern software development. This XML with very strict syntax when we want just to get a resource or create a resource, that's probably not the best way, not the easiest, most comfortable way. And also reusability, because it's XML, which is very different than we use like JSON on a daily basis. So it's hard to transform. But just for you, I try to find some positives. They are maybe not too attractive, but there is some demand on the market, and not many people know it. So if you know it, good for you. There are still many institutions I know, like big financial institutions, banks, and so on, using SOAP, probably using forever, and it won't change. Rewriting it to other protocol, it's not worth money. We want to earn money, not to have a perfect protocol underneath. Now, what are my hints for you if you are involved in SOAP testing? The first one, focus much on headers and failures. And the reason is, usually, you get a failure not as a status code, but as a message in a response. Even if you get status code, it might be very generic one, just server error 500, not too informative. But much more information you can find in the response. So if you are testing and you want some negative scenarios, check the response specifically and failures incoming with response. The second one, because it's heavy protocol, it has all those things around, like envelope and all the markers, all the tags, namespaces. It's heavy. It's very, very heavy. So focus on performance, and there is at least one tool I know. It's SOAP UI, specifically dedicated for SOAP testing. I'm not surprised there are not many more, but at least there is something. But you can quite easily craft requests just using regular like tools, Postman, Bruno, Insomnia, whatever, or just pure code, but it needs a little bit crafting. And actually, that's what we've been doing the whole day yesterday during workshop. And the third one, it's worth to check it, the whole structure, because it's very formalized, very strict. We should follow this. We should check the structure. OK, GraphQL, my favorite one. And I might be subjective, obviously. But this one, at least, is my favorite one. So how it works? We define the exact schema of the fields we want to receive. So the major difference comparing to REST is I tell what I want to receive. If I want just one field, ID of the user, I can type it. And it returns me just this ID. I can easily nest those fields. I can define every field separately, but I receive only what I define. Nothing more, period. Only this thing I define. And the second very important part is I send it with one request only. I do not send multiple requests like in the REST, but just one. And I define what I want to receive. Definitely a drawback is this middle part that must be maintained during development. So it's a middle layer, usually it's like Apollo server, is like standard now, between you, so end user, and all the resources, like services, microservices, databases, and so on. So there is this additional layer. Now, what about our free attributes? It's bidirectional, for sure, request response, but there is one dot. It has also persisted connection, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. The second one, similarly to SOAP, underneath it's always post method with the body included. And the third thing, it uses JSON in response, but for request, it uses a special structure. It mimics JSON response, but it's not fully JSON. It's not like all those brackets and so on. It has slightly different syntax. I'm not going to deep much into this, but the most important thing, this query, like on the left, mimics exactly what you're going to receive as JSON. Now, this is also a protocol. This is specified, this is described. And here we have three possibilities. We have queries, which just gets you a data. So like get for REST. Then we have mutations that mutates data. Yeah, that's obvious Sherlock. Mutates data, which means we can delete, we can create, update data. So everything that comes with modifications, we can put under mutations. And then we have subscriptions, and this is like long-standing connections where we exactly subscribe to specific events. So I'm just telling, hey, I want to receive only when there is a new goal in a game. I think it was Portugal-Hungary yesterday. So I want to receive those specific events. If there is a new goal, I want to receive it. And the important part are errors. GraphQL defines own errors, not as a status codes, but as response messages. And usually, it looks like this. You get a response, which is 200, but inside, there is a list of errors. So checking a status code if you have a negative scenario for GraphQL, and that's not a good idea. And I see some people smiling, and it's like, probably, I remember this. It was like a few months ago, me struggling, telling product owner everything was super correct, and it wasn't. So be careful, be aware of this. Like status codes for GraphQL, no, it's not the best idea. Now, we have a few more requests as an example, but this is boring part. This is like a lot of text, a lot of code. But what's important, because it's graph query language, it's not graphical, extending the name. It's graph query language, so every resource depends on another. And the problem is I can nest it infinitely. So here I have example of model, and for the model of specific robot, I want a list of robots for this model. But this robot is a specific model. And underneath, when I have model, I can request for a list of robots for this model. So I very quickly make a complexity that overreaches services capabilities. And that's very good test for the beginning. Just yesterday during workshop, the first thing I was just trying to show people how to correct, how servers are properly managing this. The only problem was this server died. It was not properly managed. So this is a very good test for the very beginning. Now, what are my hints for GraphQL testing? Actually, you've seen it already. Errors, status code, no, that's not a good idea. The second thing, queries and mutations, is really easy. And there are a lot of references to REST. If you have never worked, just remember like queries, getting data, mutations is editing, deleting, creating new ones, whatever comes with modifying data. Then complexity, and the example with broken server, dead server from yesterday is a very good one. It was just, it used to be show off, and eventually we just broke a server. It woke up after a few minutes, but that's another story. And then, important thing, there are a lot of query interfaces when you just click. And what I recommend is Poke API, just for fun, for testing. It's Pokemon API. 10 years ago, it was not that trendy, you know, Pokemons and so on, and I was already using it, so I can tell I used it before it was trendy, and before Charizard card was $300,000. And there is important factor, it's free, so I recommend it. Now, WebSockets as a fourth one, and this is probably very different, and the difference is it's long-term standing connection, and here you see mythical 101 to be exact, and this is switching protocol. So we're switching from just GET, which is for getting connection, and then we have long-standing connection. So we stay in connection. We just connect and we stay, period. There is no like request response. What we do is we send and receive messages asynchronously. It's called full duplex. So like when you call to your mother, telling, at least that's me, calling, hey, I can join you for a weekend, but I need some good lunch. And then, oh yeah, maybe stuffed cabbage and tomato soup. Okay, I can come. So when you talk, it's full duplex, so everyone can talk. And this is how WebSockets works. And then format can be anything. Starting from readable JSON up to plain text and encoded data that is not readable for you at all. What are testing hints for this, if it's so different? The first one, using those tools that you probably have on a daily basis, like Postman, Bruno, and so on, you cannot do really automation. It's more like for exploration, for manual testing. You connect and then you craft messages. You can send, receive, and check what's happening. But it's not full automation. For full automation, you need to get dirty and do some coding and open ChatGPT, obviously, because that's how we code nowadays. But you need just coding if you want full automation. Other than that, those tools are good enough. Then connectivity. It's non-functional parameter, which I didn't mention before, and the reason is all those others are request response. Here we have staying in connection. So it's important to check connectivity, like reconnecting, number of reconnects, timeouts for a handshake, so for setting the connection, and anything else that comes to your mind. So connectivity attribute is very important. And then just don't be afraid. Like, I think that's the most important hint here. It sounds very different, but when you start working, it's natural. You just stay in a connection, and there are messages. And the most popular products are probably like cryptocurrencies, and I'm not recommending you to buy. I'm not like the one who says you, I have a new good cryptocurrency now. It's meme coin, but you will earn money. No, but you can open it and check what's underneath. That's surely a WebSocket that you subscribe, and it's giving you some information when there is new price. It might be stock exchange, live scoring systems, betting companies. Again, I do not recommend for playing, but for testing, it's really good. And now, I told you about subscriptions before, and I didn't elaborate it. And the reason is because we didn't talk about WebSockets. And underneath, there is a WebSocket. It's just called subscriptions. So WebSockets are exactly subscriptions for GraphQL. Now, point -0.1. Webhooks. And why -0.1? And the reason is very simple. I will show you in a second. But, 1 minute. I can be super quick. So the idea is I subscribe to some specific events, and it's giving me information when it comes. No confirmation, just giving me information. For example, you get a new notification from your bank. Hey, you have money incoming. Or you have money to pay, which is much more sad information. But it's also information, and it's also webhook. So it's send and forget, and this is a pun included for people like me and a little bit older. It's one direction. The second one, methods, no methods basically, it's just message. And the third one, can be any format. Now, what are testing hints? Just be careful, because otherwise you can end up like this, and you've probably seen it many times. And the screen on the right, you see it, is in Polish. And we have a rule. If you can read all of those letters immediately, you get a citizenship. So good luck. Now, what's next? Well, it's about learning. Learn, educate, upskill, and that's it. Thank you very much. 30 seconds too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawid. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have questions coming up, but for some reason we have a technical issue with Eventi. Does anyone have a question or a comment for Dawid? Please stand up. Oh, don't be shy. Come on. Okay. Aha. How to implement API testing in some test automation framework.
So my question nowadays would be, you type ChatGPT in Google Chrome, and then you type in prompt field how to implement test automation tool for API testing. No, but seriously, probably if you are not experienced at all, the best way is just to use semi-automation tool like Postman, Bruno. Bruno is free. That's a very good attribute of any tool. There is Insomnia, like many other tools. So this very generic question is a question for another hour of talking at least. But my recommendation is to not start with the very high level of abstraction. So just use a tool that already exists. That should be more than enough. And in my previous work, even we had full automation using Postman. And it was pretty good. It was pretty successful, and people were not super proficient. I was looking for the good neutral English word for this. They were not super proficient in automation and coding, and they did really, really good job using Postman only. Other than that, I'm a great fan of Python. That's why I called my cat Python. So, and another used to be Java, but I hate Java, so it's not Java anymore. But use it. There are many, many tools. You can even use Playwright and API. It's not extension now, it's a part, but API part of Playwright for testing. But it's another discussion if it's worth to use the whole Playwright just to test API.
Okay, one final question. What was the most interesting problem you ran into during API testing?
The most interesting problem. So I have a story, and I don't know how many.
1 minute.
That's good enough. I have a story. So I worked for the company doing cameras for pets with laser, you know, so cat can run and catch laser. I don't like it. Cats should have a reward. But yeah, the question was about API, not about cats. So I worked for the company doing cameras for pets and cookies launcher for pets and so on. And you could connect it live. From the app, you could connect it live. And there was a rerouting part between. So the client could connect, there was some authorization part, and then it was rerouting you to the proper camera. Simple idea, and you probably have a lot of those like Xiaomi or other tools. The problem was we had some rerouting issues with this API connection, and at some point the customer came to us saying, guys, I tried to connect to my camera, but there was not my camera, and there was semi-naked woman just laying down under the camera. Of course, we were surprised why he was complaining. That's the first thing. But the second thing, it was a very big problem because it's privacy and security underneath, and we spent quite a lot of time trying to fix it. So I would say this was the most interesting. So privacy, security, and authorization aspects of API testing are also super important.
Okay, you have one last question. Whiskey on the rocks, plain neat.
Guys, I'm super strict when it comes to opinion about whiskey. It's plain only.
Good
and
job.
I expect applause now. No, like seriously. But seriously, I'm very liberal. If you drink whiskey, just come, say hello. You can have even whiskey with Coke, and I accept it. So we have a party today. I hope you join.
Thank you so much, Dawid. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Dawid. And if you have any additional questions, you can find him out here. He's also doing a master class sometime, right?
No, it was yesterday.
He's not doing a master class.
If you can get back in time, I invite you for yesterday. Otherwise, maybe next year.
If you buy him a whiskey, he'll give you the long answer to your question.
I know more about whiskey than API, so.
Okay, thank you so much.